the ramp-up period's always fun on these things. I think they get the whole thing, actually. We sit here and talk to each other. I think they get, like, the preamble and then this stuff, but great to be here. Please welcome to the podcast a doctor. Usually when I would have doctors on my show, previous inceptions of this show, doctors would be talking about COVID and masking restrictions. And now I've got the great pleasure of being introduced to and bringing you a doctor who recently practiced for a very long period of time in the United States of America. Through the beauty and the magic of the community here at Substack, we found each other, and she is a fountain of information. She is a former doctor out of Las Vegas. We'll get to disciplines and we'll get to her journey. She is no longer in Las Vegas. She has since left the United States of America recently and is filling a much needed void here in Canada as the brain drain continues from the United States of America. Please welcome to the program from Under the White Coat. That is your Substack handle, I believe. And you are Dr. Amber Hull, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome Dr. Amber Hull. Do you like that little golf clap you get? It's nice.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm delighted to be here talking to you today. And I'm delighted to be in Canada. I'm in Vancouver, BC. And this morning, before our talk, I went for a walk over to the beach, which is, about an hour round trip walk each way. And it's funny because today, actually, June the 10th, is the 4-year anniversary of when I had the second surgery on my femur. Some very skilled surgeons in Las Vegas put my femur back together, and I spent the balance of 2021 learning to walk again and completely disabled. And today's the 4-year anniversary of that, and I went for an hour-long walk before this talk. So.
Oh, congratulations. You're celebrating your 4-year anniversary from being disabled here in Canada with us in your new home. That's incredible. I had no idea. You and I have had cursory conversations since I came to know who you were, and you've been fairly vocal. I think you've been careful with how you've kind of talked about your transition to Canada. But we couldn't be happier that you're celebrating that up here with us, Amber. Let's just kind of get into the kind of medicine that you practiced, what you're certified in, et cetera, and then we'll kind of go from there because your journey's been incredible and grateful that you've shared it with everybody on Substack.
Yeah. So my background is, for anyone who knows me well, the fact that I'm practicing internationally now isn't coming as a huge surprise because even in medical school, I was on some leadership organizations, the Council of Osteopathic Student Government Presidents, where I actually helped to found an executive board position for the promotion of global health and the ability of osteopathic medical students and trainees to be able to practice in other countries and get clinical credit for it. I was on some executive committees, including on the board of trustees of the American Osteopathic Association, and did a lot of advocacy for American physicians going and practicing and bringing these skills abroad. I worked at the State Department briefly in medical school in the Office of International Health and Biodefense. And I went on to do most of my undergraduate elective rotations in med school, I did in women's health and obstetrics and gynecology, thinking that I wanted to be an OBGYN. But the doctors that I worked with were all like, it's not if you get sued, it's when you get sued as an OBGYN. And so for that reason, I was like, I really like pediatrics. I did clinical research in pediatrics before I went to medical school at the Children's Hospital in Denver. So I did pediatrics residency. I did a year of newborn intensive care fellowship. And so basically 4 total years of training. My board certification is in pediatrics. But after I became disabled in 21, I basically physically couldn't go back to seeing 40 patients a day and rounding in the hospital and, working in this meat grinder of a system that just was chewing me up and spitting me out, literally, emotionally, mentally, physically. So I started my own practice in Vegas and was doing basically cash-based, house call-based direct primary care in pediatrics. And through that, the majority of families that came to me were either in the last trimester of pregnancy or had these very young children. And so I talked to a lot of moms about just what they were experiencing after delivering babies and how their bodies changed and how their relationships with their own bodies changed and how their relationships with their partners changed and just trying to figure out that, emotional and physical balance between like parenting and self-care and, trying to nurture a relationship that doesn't look like it did before children were in the picture. And so I really kind of went back to my roots of this interest in like women's health, integrative health, mind body medicine. And so I've spent the last several years while running my own practice studying menopause medicine and sex medicine, which I didn't even know was an option when I was a medical student. Like if I
Like
hadn't,
Viagra? You're talking about sex medicine like Viagra and topicals and all the other great stuff that make everything so much better sometimes? Is that what you're saying?
right. But for women, it's more of a challenge because like
Yeah.
sexual health has never been a priority in medicine. It's like, oh, that's just normal part of aging. Like you just like get older, dry up, and that's it. And, my generation of women is like, no, no, that's
You're
not.
not the Crisco generation, are you? Yeah.
No, no. So kind of a complex story, but it really like when you take a step back at the trajectory of what my career has always looked like, ending up practicing menopause medicine and sexual health medicine internationally and talking about it on this platform, it really is just, it all makes sense.
Mm. Yeah, you've curated an incredible community, and a lot of the content that you do at Under the White Coat Substack. By the way, everybody go subscribe to Dr. Amber Hall's Substack. She's incredible. It's very much geared towards women's sexual health and normalizing those conversations, reproductive health, postmenopausal health. Relationships and there's literally nothing shameful about that conversation, and the way you present it is nothing short of easy to access. So, when we talk about sexual health, guys don't like talking about it. I'm always open to it because I love a good sexual health conversation, specifically with dudes. Guys, get your prostates checked, by the way, super important. And it's interesting your evolution through the actual system and how the system sort of what you didn't like and what you did like sort of made you pivot into this area that's very niche and that your expertise kind of caters to, which is sort of a great springboard for the conversation, right? Where you practice medicine in the United States, and several years ago, you start seeing signposts, or you're like, I don't really like this. I need to pivot, and you find yourself in Canada now. What, have you been here for about 2 weeks? You've immigrated to Canada with your dogs, and you brought your expertise to a country that truly needs access to professionals like you. And the reason why we connected was over an article that I wrote over the brain drain. This is about 2, 3 months ago over at Substack, and you contacted me and you said, "Hey, I'm one of those people." And I looked into your story, and your story's not dissimilar to thousands of other medical professionals, healthcare professionals in the United States who are sort of, being challenged as you were challenged professionally. You're now being challenged philosophically, and the healthcare system provided with the political environment, the violence that's going on in the United States. Women's rights being clawed back with Roe v. Wade, reproductive rights being clawed back, and the fight that's going on there. You sort of sit in this incredible cradle for men and women, healthcare professionals, men and women whose entire life has pointed to this moment, and that moment has now become so incredibly difficult. Can you talk about that a little bit, because your pivot to Canada is a pretty big one, Dr. Hall?
Right. There's just so much to this. And, for me, the people for millennia have been fleeing religious persecution and economic instability and structural violence. And historically, that migration has been to the United States. But we're at this inflection point now where increasingly people are looking at their options outside of the United States for, similar reasons. And for me, I've experienced what our healthcare system is like. I just paid off the last of the medical bills from my injury 4 years ago, like, around the same time that I moved here 2 weeks ago, right? Like, bankruptcy is the result of medical bills in the United States, and firearms are the number one cause of mortality in children in the United States. Like, there's just all of this, like, structural stuff that, as a professional, a medical professional who has, like, committed my life to taking care of other people, the question, like, that begs itself is, like, how long am I gonna light myself on fire to keep other people warm? And
Mm.
I, like, I'm a healer, and I've worked my entire, my entire life on being able to develop this skill set where, I have the privilege to be trusted with people's most intimate secrets and be trusted with the health of their children and, the decisions that they make about aging and relationships and their sexuality and, you know, the plant. We were talking about the plant in the background.
Yeah,
When
the one behind me, that's Gary. By the way, I've taken care of him for a long time. I love him. It's my plant. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't take something and put it in an environment that's designed for it to fail and expect it to flourish, right? Like,
Mm.
take that plant and put it in a dark room and not water it and, like, slowly, like, take, just spoonful by spoonful, take the soil out of there. That plant is gonna shrivel, it's not gonna thrive, it's not gonna blossom, it's not gonna produce fruit, which I know that's not a fruit producing plant, but you get the analogy, right? Like,
Yeah.
and for me, this has been kind of a long-standing erosion of, professional trust and an undermining of the system that is designed to help people access care. And, you know, have heard from many Canadian doctors are not it is not perfect here. We have our flaws. We have issues with access. We have issues with bureaucracy. We have issues with all this stuff. But, like, people here don't go bankrupt because of an appendectomy
No.
or broken leg or a car accident. Right? And coming here and the people, like, the warmth of the welcome that I have received here has been beyond anything I could have expected. Like, strangers on the internet and Canadians from, all over Substack are like, "We value you. We need you here. We're so grateful and happy to have you come and contribute to our community, our culture, our economy." And so that it's just like this sense of relief, this sense of this weight being lifted that I didn't even fully recognize was there
Mm.
is like, I just don't even have the words to describe it.
That's awesome. I sensed that in your Substack post where you kind of launched it and you had some pictures of you driving up to Canada. I encourage everybody to go and subscribe, go and read Dr. Hall's post because you included your pooches in there, and I love dogs, so that's great. But just the relief that kind of came through your writing was unbelievable as someone who has, practiced medicine in the United States and someone who's watched the political climate devolve in the United States. What was the bigger impetus for you? Was it, the rolling back of reproductive health? Was it the attack on, alt sexuality in the United States? Was it the burdensome costs and the 560,000 medical bankruptcies in the United States in the year 2024, where there are zero here? Or was it just time for a change for you? And why Canada, I guess? And we'll get to the first part of that question, then we'll get to the second part in just a second, because someone like you can go anywhere with your credentials. But what was the impetus for it?
Right. It's all
Was
of it.
there one thing? Like, was there one day where you're like, "God damn it, I gotta get out of here?"
It's all of it, and I've been thinking about this for a very long time, and I've always, as I said at the top of the interview, I've always considered myself to be, a multiple passport person, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I have physician colleagues who have left the States. I have one that moved to Thailand last year after retiring from family medicine in Oregon. I have a couple of friends who have gone to New Zealand. I have, several who have come here, and it's just all of it. And at the end of the day, part of the reason that the story of the United Healthcare CEO being murdered, part of the reason that that was so resonant for Americans, like, across the political spectrum, is that everything within our system is designed to enrich corporate interests. And that is being facilitated by politicians across the board. Like, you can go to Open Secrets and you can look at your state senator, your congress people, presidential candidates, and see who's taking money from United Healthcare. You can see who's taking money from the Hospital Corporation of America and, Pfizer and, all of these corporate interests. And it's everyone. Like, the system is so entrenched that I just, and I hate to be a naysayer, and I'm sure I'm gonna get backlash for this, but, like, Citizens United, that legislation, like, so ingrained the ability of corporate interests to own the American healthcare system that I just don't believe it's ever gonna change. Like,
Mm.
it to literally take a revolution to change what our healthcare system looks like, and so for me, it's like that and the fact that, like, even after my injury, I don't have the if something like that were to happen again, I don't have the economic stability to be able to, like, retire in the United States.
Mm.
And the yesterday it was announced that the Health and Human Services Division has dismantled the CDC committee that advises on vaccines, and there
Mhm.
legislation to propose to strip funding for doctors to train in children's hospitals. I mean, that's absurd. Our healthcare trainees are funded their education in our hospitals across the United States, which are the safety net hospitals, by the way, are funded by Medicare and Medicaid. And so if you start taking funding away from that and privatizing it, like, how are you going to train doctors?
Mm.
And, as passionate as I am about providing equitable healthcare to people, like, I can't live in destitution and emotional wreckage as a result of the system that I'm working in.
Did you feel this way prior to your injury, when you broke your femur and obviously incurred enormous costs? Because it seems to be a real philosophical change here for you at some point.
Um, there was evidence of it, but part of American medical training is that you just get conditioned to submit to the hierarchy and do things this way because it's the way that we've always done it. And, just, brush yourself off, get back out there into the trenches and, keep doing what you're doing because we need you. Right. And have you watched the show The Pit on
Oh,
HBO?
yeah, it's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those sleeper shows where I'm like, "I don't wanna watch this," and then you start watching, you're like, "Oh my god, why did I avoid the pit?" It's great. Yeah.
Right. And it really is the most realistic depiction of what it's like to train in the healthcare system in the United States. I mean, it's just, it touches on everything from poverty to, human trafficking to domestic violence to racism and all of these things that are, you know, it's what the United States has always been, but it really shows the toll that it takes on the nurses and the doctors and the allied health professionals. And, I'm not a TV watcher, but all my friends know that, like, I don't binge watch shows. I don't watch movies. Like, I don't have that kind of attention span. But, like, if you want to know about American healthcare, watch The Pit. And so, getting back to answering your question, have I always felt like this? I think you know, through my injury and through starting my own practice and doing all of the legwork of the referrals and the prior authorizations and, the navigating of the healthcare system, which is, I spent more than half my time as a business owner doing, I saw things within the American healthcare system that I just could not unsee. And
Mm.
those are the kind of structural things that made me recognize that, like, I could flourish in a place where I'm not the plant in the corner being starved of water and sunlight. If I go to a place that, allows for those things, my, clinical practice, my creativity, my voice in educating people about their own bodies and their options, all of that stuff can thrive if I'm not in an environment where I'm constantly, like, standing in the middle of a forest fire with a water pistol.
Mm. Mm. What a great analogy. Why Canada? I know that there are several organizations. Canada's actually got several really incredible programs, different provinces. The federal government's got some great programs. I don't think Quebec does yet. And you landed in British Columbia. And I know some of your colleagues watched an incredible interview that you did on your Substack, Under the White Coat, with Dr. Nishat, who actually went to New Zealand and rented a camper van to kind of run around and see where she wanted to set up shop with her family. And she's eternally grateful and happy for that. And you've also, you probably had plenty of options when you said maybe it's time to pull the trigger and get out of here for philosophical, political, and personal reasons. But why Canada?
So, that was a great story. The camper van story,
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah.
was awesome. And I spent a lot of last year traveling around the world. I went to Portugal, I went to Ireland, I went to Spain, a couple times. I went to France, I came to Canada several times, and for me, it was kind of like a multifactorial thing. And as folks are starting to reach out to me to be like, I'm interested in leaving the United States. What's your advice? Number one is like, where can you get a visa? Like, what does it take? It's not like ask what your country of preference can do for you. It's what can you do for that country? Like, what skill set do you bring to the place that you want to go? And so, visa was number one. A place that is English speaking because like I speak a little bit of like Spanglish, white girl Spanglish, but like not enough to practice medicine. And like it would be a heavy lift for me to learn to practice like
I just want to know what white girl Spanish is. Is it more like dumb white guy Italian? Because I was just in Italy, and man, oh man, did they laugh at me when I started trying to haul out my Italian. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's adorable when my Spanish speaking colleagues kind of give me grace and a polite smile when I try. But like it's a heavy lift to practice medicine in another language. So I wanted to go somewhere that was English speaking. And frankly, like I love people in the United States, and Canadians have said this to me too. We love Americans, and I want
Hmm.
relationships, and I want to be able to come and go freely, and I want to be able to coordinate phone calls and Zoom calls with the people that I love in the United States. And when I'm on Central European time, it was harder to do that. So I still intend to do a lot of traveling. It does rain and it gets cold in British Columbia in the wintertime. So I still have every intention of like traveling to Southern Europe, and I have a friend in Kauai. So I'll do some traveling in the wintertime, especially. But for me, Canada, the culture here in BC and in Vancouver specifically, I just I love it. The people here are so nice. They're so lovely. It's like very pluralistic. There is this mutual respect for and contribution to the public good. Like there are community gardens all over the place. And on my walk this morning, I was like, I saw comedy shows and like um, music events. I got invited by another American doctor who moved here to a barbecue this weekend that's a fundraiser for like malaria treatment in, somewhere else in the world. But like just the community and the people and the culture and the art and, the fashion and the music and just the fact that I feel safe here.
Mm, mm.
They'll come and go from the States and keep in touch with my family. So there was a lot to it.
That's awesome that you feel safe here. Can we get into that just a little bit? I know we've got about 10, 15 minutes before you got a heart out because you're a doctor and you've got people to save and really important shit to do. So I'll let you go do it. But I want to dig into that because, going back to your article that you wrote where it was sort of your coming out, here I am. I'm in British Columbia. I left the United States of America to practice medicine in a country that welcomes my expertise and who I am and that sense of relief. Can you describe that? Because one of the things that you said in your interview, and you've repeated it here in your interview with Dr. Nashett, was relief that you didn't know or a burden you didn't know was lifted. What was it? Can you identify that you felt that was lifted after you left the United States? And what do you think was causing that? Was it, like I said, was it the political turmoil? Was it, philosophically? Because you've been pretty careful. You've parsed your words very carefully because you still want to go back to the United States, visit loved ones, family. You never know when you're going to want to go back. But there's a real fear there for any medical professional, anybody with a phone or fucking any kind of like online presence to speak out against that. So imagine leaving that behind has been a huge relief for you being in a place where you can go live your life. But can you describe the two feelings for me?
So for me, so much of this is about violence, right?
Mm.
Sometimes it's unspoken violence, and I actually published an article about domestic violence a couple of weeks before I moved here when I was kind of in the thick of that, like, just really emotional reaction about leaving that situation, and a lot of people reached out to me and were like, you know, "You should leave this situation," because I wrote about it from the perspective of a victim of domestic violence, drawn partially on, experiences in my past, but, like,
Mhm.
really that essay was about what it felt like to live in a culture where there's always the threat of violence. And
Do you have an example of that? Because a lot of people in the United States, like my buddy Jeremy, he lives in Arizona and he's moving back to Canada, and it's because, there are 3 arrests at his kid's school. They all brought guns, and he's like, "I gotta go, I gotta leave." But can you give me some examples of those, the violence that you just couldn't handle anymore?
so I'll give you 2.
Yeah.
I in Vegas, and Las Vegas is kind of like it's a whole other different animal even than a lot of other cities in the United States, but I lived in a gated community. I had 3 cameras installed around my house. Locked all of the exterior doors. I locked my bedroom door. I had a pistol in the closet and a machete under the bed.
Mm.
Okay? Like, and maybe that was overkill, but maybe it's not. When I moved here and I sold a pistol, by the way, through a licensed dealer, which there's been a lot of learning in this process. And if you sell
Yeah,
it,
you can't come up here with your shit. Yeah.
yeah, you should sell it through a licensed dealer to make sure that it's tracked and what
Yeah.
have you. But when I moved up here, I moved into a place that's surrounded by these beautiful gardens, right? Like I walk out my front door, I open a window and it just smells like flowers. And people walking down the street will like stop and take pictures or take videos of the gardens around the house. And, the first time I walked out within like the first like 36, 48 hours, there was a woman like taking video of the gardens. And I kind of like had this look on my face, like, who are you and what for? Like the assumption was violence, right? And like, and, and that's absurd, right? Like it's, it's beautiful. The peonies are blooming, the roses are blooming, the lavender, right? Like she's taking pictures of the flowers. She's not casing the joint. And since I moved here, there was actually like a few days before I left, there was a shooting at a gym. Someone got into an altercation with one of the managers of the gym and went out and got an assault rifle and came back in and started firing on people. Um, Last weekend, there was a shooting at a water park. There was a shooting on one of the main highways that I drive on. Like some guy like went after another guy with a knife on the freeway, which I don't even know how that happened, but the
Must
guy,
be able to run fast, maybe. Maybe the guy was running
yeah,
fast. And did you see the shooting in front of the Bellagio? YouTuber got shot.
oh yeah,
That was last weekend. What's that?
I was getting to that. Someone was
Oh, I'm
shot
sorry.
at Bellagio. There are like road rage incidents and people pulling guns on each other in Vegas all the time. And so it just I mean, I can just, like, walk down the street and have a degree of confidence that, like, no one's gonna assault me or pull a gun on me, you know?
What's that like?
Amazing. It's amazing.
Mm, mm. I love these stories from people like you, and we're so grateful. Dr. Amber Hall joins us on the Dean Blundell Show today. She is a doctor who has left the United States of America for the beautiful climate of Vancouver. I'm jealous. It's awesome out there. And we're talking about the relief that she's experienced since leaving the United States of America professionally and more importantly personally. It is amazing to hear you compare the two, and amazing to see the smile on your face when you talk about the difference that you're experiencing here in Canada. And it's incredible too, because I'm looking at the chat, as we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in here, people that like Dr. Hogan, Dr. McNabb, who are saying, hey, hi from Dr. McNabb. Tell everybody Dr. Hogan, tell Amber Dr. Hogan says hi. You've got compatriots and friends that are in here as well. I imagine some of the United States. Can you take me inside some of those conversations that you're having with other doctors who look at what you've done and said, "Yeah, that's incredibly brave," and we have a major philosophical difference with the environment here in the United States. How did you do it? What advice would you give another doctor trying to figure out whether or not they're safe to practice their brand of medicine, or they want to get out of that meat grinder of corporate medicine in the United States of America? And where would you send them? What would you tell them today?
So there are several provinces, British Columbia being one of them, that are rolling out advertising campaigns. I think BC spent like $5 million on an advertising campaign that's targeted at physicians in Nevada, or I'm sorry, not Nevada, California, Oregon, Washington. They're streamlining the process. Like, even since I have another physician who practices out in Nanaimo on Vancouver Island, who came here in, I think, like 2021, and the process has been significantly streamlined even since he came here.
Mhm.
They are taking public comment right now on easing restrictions around specialists, accepting American board or ABMS board certification, American Board of Medical Specialists board certification, recognizing that as equivalent to Canadian training so that oncologists and neurologists and anesthesiologists and surgeons can come here, because historically it's been easier for family medicine and like GP docs to come. So there are a variety of Canadian provinces that are rolling out these initiatives. And if you want to practice in a rural area, there are financial incentives to go and serve those communities because there is a real need. So for folks who like want to practice in a, an area where you will be valued and you will not be threatened with criminalization or imprisonment, where you're, providing healthcare to people isn't going to bankrupt them, and, things are just covered, then this is a great option. I'm in a few communities, including the Hippocratic Adventures community on Substack, which historically has been for doctors who are interested in, taking locums positions or like working remotely, like going around the world, and sort of like adventures is in the name, right? But like,
Mhm.
that community has now been flooded with doctors who are looking at long term or permanent placement abroad. So there are resources out there. They're available. Health Careers BC is the Ministry of Health website, and they've got some upcoming webinars for physicians, nurses, allied health professionals. Someone asked me about EMTs, and I don't know the answer to that question. But
Yeah, nurses too. There's a huge. I think there's a bunch of programs for nurses that kind of follow along the same lines as there are for medical doctors, if I'm not mistaken. If you are a nurse in the United States, because I remember when I put out your post about leaving United States for Canada, I had a bunch of nurses that are like, nurses too. Can she get help for nurses? Can nurses come to the can? Absolutely. We've got a massive need for it, and Canada in the time of great uncertainty with the United States of the Trump regime running around has taken advantage of the uncertainty in the United States, and the fact that you've got literally an anti-vaxxer who just destroyed any vaccinology research and any oversight for vaccines and pandemics. You've got a bunch of medical health professionals running scared right now, and so and these are my words, not Dr. Amber Hall's. But this is sort of one of those really unique moments in time where Canada is taking advantage of being in the wake of whatever the fuck's going on in the United States of America, to not just roll out the red carpet, but to get underneath that red carpet and almost like, for a lack of a better term, underground railroad for professionals that want to come, because we truly do need healthcare. I believe 6.5 million Canadians do not have access to healthcare at this moment in time. It's an access issue up here, and we're trying to take this as an opportunity to be able to bring people like you, who are so good at what you do, into the country to fill an incredibly necessary void in healthcare in this country. So yes, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but for nurses, and there are other programs that are available. Are there federal programs available too, or are these just provincial?
I don't know so much from the standpoint of the federal, like my experience with the Canadian federal level is more with regard to IRCC, which is immigration, and
Yeah.
express entry for permanent residency, which is an option. But I know that like Newfoundland and Nova Scotia and Manitoba and Saskatchewan and BC all have like they're rolling out recruitment efforts.
Mm.
And like I said, in the rural, oh, hi, Amanda. one of one of my people from Vegas is on here.
Hi,
But
Amanda. She says you're the best, so I guess we got the best in Canada now.
yeah, so they're all across a variety of provinces. But I think that this is something that is from the standpoint of the US and people who are looking to move abroad, it's also happening in the realm of tech and science, you know,
Mhm.
who are losing their research grants and students who are, you know, looking to like UBC expanded its application deadline to accept more American students coming in. So you know, the talent that's coming up, you know, behind those of us who are currently working professionals are starting to also look abroad. And, you know, from again, stepping back from a more like global standpoint, the innovation and creativity and drive and that like optimism of like, just because this has never been done doesn't mean that it can never be done. Those creative minds are starting to look elsewhere to take
Mm.
and to train and to study. And I think that, you know, we're kind of like on the cusp of what is going to kind of reshape intellectual and scientific and medical advancement for generations to come.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, well said. I mean, there's a warning in there too. There's an opportunity. There's also a warning. We do love Americans. We hate seeing what that country's going through. And maybe just a couple of thoughts before I let you go. Everybody's saying jail Trump in the comments. Yeah. Um, you've been here 2 weeks and you watched, as I did, Donald Trump send the National Guard in to kettle peaceful protesters. They've now detained or arrested 100 American citizens in LA specifically. He's now sending in 700 Marines and another 2,000 National Guardsmen. That was another announcement today. In what very much feels like a dry run for a police state, thumb in the eye of Gavin Newsom. You're from Las Vegas, neighbors to California. Obviously, philosophically, you would probably line up as a progressive, even though you're, you obviously are a businesswoman as well, but you have very socially progressive stances. Being here for 2 weeks, looking at the visuals you saw, kind of understanding what's happening in LA, and in a larger point, ahead of this No Kings Day rally. Just some thoughts as an American who is now been transplanted into Canada. I'd love for your kind of, back looking thoughts as you are here and you feel the way you feel as you watch what's happening in the United States today.
I mean, it's heartbreaking. And, you know, the Canadian locals that I've talked to and people that I've had conversations with and, you know, people who have reached out to me through Substack, it's heartbreaking for everyone, you know, regardless of where you're watching from. And I have friends in Los Angeles and, you know, in downtown and out in the suburbs. And I've been checking in like, are you okay? Like, what are you seeing? You know, how are things going? And there is I think an extreme element of political theater going on here, right? Like at least based on the people that I'm talking to in Los Angeles. But um, you know, I there's a big part of me that's like, I don't want to buy into the whole like glee in watching people whose political beliefs differ from mine suffer. And part of what I think is so dangerous about what's happening in the United States right now is the deliberate effort to turn Americans against one another. And
Mhm.
part of what I was feeling in the States before I left was like always, you know, listening to conversations for coded language is like, are you with me or are you against me? Like what would you have me would you have me thrown in jail? Would you have, you know, the children I care about have their health care stripped away? And, you know, that coding of language that's turning Americans against one another plays right into the hands of the people who are trying to like cow us into submission. And so that's where I try to be very, like, delicate with the schadenfreude or whatever. Like, I I don't wanna see anyone suffer. Just because their political beliefs differ from mine doesn't mean that, I want them to suffer.
Mm,
Ask people's political beliefs before I treat them for menopause, or, before I intubate a baby, or before I put in stitches, or, like, I'm not like, "Do you agree with me?" It doesn't matter. Like, part of being doctor is being a human first and taking care of people no matter what. And so I am watching what's happening there with despair. And then I need to get out and go touch grass.
mm.
Fortunately, there are plenty of community gardens here where I can.
Wow, this has been awesome. I've really enjoyed finally meeting you. I have really enjoyed the education that you sort of imparted on us today, us non-doctor types, us non-board certified physician types. And on behalf of Canada, I cannot thank you enough for choosing this country to ply your trade. I think that we've got so many important aspects to universal free healthcare that need to be fixed. It is not without issues here in Canada, but as you point out, no one's going to go bankrupt from breaking their leg. No one's going to go bankrupt from a heart attack. No one's going to go bankrupt from trying to service their heart attack. And the interesting part about this conversation is that there are very valid human reasons that, and philosophical reasons, and ideological reasons that go with process reasons as why the brain drain is on from the United States of America. This isn't about putting the thumb in the eye of the Trump regime for a lot of people. It's about where can I go to feel safe to practice my chosen profession that I spent 20 years in school to become an expert in, and I think that that's such a beautiful part of these conversations that I'm having, and a couple that I've had with different doctors. In fact, a nurse who is making her way to Canada, who's been reading a lot of our brain drain stuff over at Substack. DeanBlundell.substack.com is where you can check it out. And if you're watching, there's a bunch of articles when it comes to travel, when it comes to Americans that are choosing to go and live their life. And that attachment to being America is really important for Americans. But America isn't that America anymore for so many people in America. There seems to be that there needs to have some nuance to MAG America versus America. And my America, your America, is the America that you miss. It's the America where you could freely practice your chosen profession without having to ask someone if they're a Republican or a Democrat before you intubated a family member. That my America was that America that loved Canada, didn't threaten Canada with annexation. My America was that America where you went to the United States and you got really excited to meet new people, and every time you met them, they were like, "Oh my God, we love Canada." All of that seems to have changed and might stay changed and relevant in that conversation for the next 3.5 years. But there's always hope at the end. Regimes as they exist, they can go away just as fast. But more importantly, America's loss is Canada's gain. Once again, as Dr. Amber Hall is in Canada, along with hundreds of her fellow compatriots, I believe searches to actually come and practice medicine up here in Canada are up 750% year over year. So, it's an incredible time to be Canadian. It's an incredible time to be a medical health care professional in the United States, or a scientist or a researcher. And as a researcher, watching what's going on in the United States obviously has got to be very disconcerting. We love research up here. We value it. We like vaccines. We enjoy the healthcare perspective, and we love treating our people really well. And I hope that we continue to treat you well, and I hope we can bring more of your friends up to Canada to fill that void. Dr. Hall, it has been a pleasure. Under the White Coat is your Substack. Please go and subscribe. Any parting words for Canada or Americans? We've got about a 70-30 split American to Canada here, so please feel free.
I just wanna thank you for having this conversation with me and inviting me to be here. I am so grateful to be a provincial nominee in British Columbia. Like, thank you to everybody in, Health Careers BC and the Vancouver Coastal Health Authority and the other doctors that I'm working with and the other doctors who have advised me. Like, it's just the sense of community and the welcome and the acceptance that I've felt here has just been phenomenal. And I love Americans and I love
Mm.
Canadians, And, I hope that I can continue to be a good ambassador for both countries.
No, you will. Appreciate you. Dr. Hall, you have a great day. Go get on with your business. It's actual real business. It's not like podcasting with me.
Amazing. Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye. Dr. Amber Hall, ladies and gentlemen. She is now a doctor in British Columbia. She was a doctor in Las Vegas. Hundreds, and I mean hundreds of your doctors are coming up here, America. Why? It's better. It's nicer. And they don't have to, worry about their ER getting shot up. Among other things. Fascinating conversation, isn't it? Thanks, Oaths Matter. Thank everybody for. I want to thank everybody for stopping by today and staying with it. We've got hundreds of people watching this live stream. It's on. I mean, what you're seeing in the United States is as real as it gets, and people are leaving in droves. Not just medical healthcare professionals. People are leaving, specifically red states, in droves, and the fight is on. I'll be back at around 3 o'clock for the 5 Stack with Zev. We'll go over the latest as Trump continues to attack Los Angeles. We just kind of went over some of the details. 700 Marines are actively on their way to the city of Los Angeles. He has enacted and deployed troops against his own people. What was a peaceful protest now threatening to arrest Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, now threatening to arrest Gavin Newsom, all from his tough guy perch, and absolutely has no cards to play. This is unlawful. It is illegal. What is happening in the United States, and the active duty officers who are getting ready to deploy should refuse that deployment. Those are unlawful deployments. And I know I say this heartily from Canada, but I'm smart enough to listen to the right people who know these things are true. And what's happening, and I think it goes without saying, if you go to my Substack, you can read all about it. By the way, 50% off flash sale today again for annual subscriptions. But this is a dry run for No King's Day. This is a dry run for the police state. What's going on here is a dry run to treat you, my American friends, Canada's America's friends, like insurrectionists. He's co-opting that whole thing. He's co-opting the word insurrection. I did say it for years because he caused one that almost worked, where people died, officers got murdered, and now he's threatening to use to protect officers who get spit on in a fight that he's starting with provocateurs, possibly that used to be part of the January 6th pardon crew, possibly Proud Boys and Rico Terrio, who was supposed to be in jail for 18 years. He pardoned him. There was a reason behind these pardons. There was a reason behind those pardons. There was a reason behind all of these things. And I would highly encourage all of my American friends today to keep your head on a swivel. Do not get violent. I say that knowing full well how angry you are, and you should be angry. You should be angry that someone is threatening you in your cities. You should be angry that on No King's Day, the massive protests that are going around the United States of America on June 14th, you will see more of this. It started happening in Texas today. More violence, and by the way, violence promoted by the Trump regime today. And they will use it as a precursor to institute a police state in the United States of America. And I know, yes, I see you. I know you are angry. And you should be. But in your life, it'll never be more important to respond well in the best interest of painting a different picture and telling a different story that Donald Trump wants to tell. He wants to tell a story about you causing him a national emergency. He wants to tell a story about unruly migrants and Mexicans, and so he can introduce martial law. There you go. Dawn, it's a new dawn. Martial law is coming. The Insurrection Act is coming. This is all a precursor to it. He is going to goad you into it. Don't do it. It's never been more important. There's a phrase in Latin called amor fati. It's called love fate, embrace fate. But the response to that embrace has to be above board. Gandhi knew that. All the great peaceful leaders of our time who ushered in change knew that. And America's on the precipice. You can do it. Canada believes in you. And there will be a time for state-sponsored, state institutional violence against the people who are currently doing this to you. There will be a time when The Hague will chase these dickheads down, when they will go to court. This will chase Marco Rubio around. This will chase Kristi Noem around Stephen Miller, Tim Hassett, every single sycophant in the Trump regime, every single one of it will chase them down and they will get it, but don't give it to them. Let someone else do it. Don't give them a reason. Stay safe this weekend. We'll be back at 3 o'clock for the 5 stack. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Who loves democracy in North America. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And thanks to Dr. Amber Hall. Under the White Coat is the name of her Substack. Go and subscribe. Don't forget 50% off right now. Annual subscriptions. Just go to my Substack, the latest story. There's a little link on there. It's kind of like an Easter egg. I want to see how many people are paying attention. 50% off annual subscriptions today only. Another flash sale, 35% off for the month of June after that. But go take advantage of the sale. We want you to be part of this. Love bringing you these conversations. Thank you so much to these scores of people who've watched today. Doesn't matter where you are. Yay democracy, yay Canada, yay America, yay us. Let's collectively go and get this. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you at 3 o'clock.